right. Welcome back, my nomads. Welcome back to another Bitcast. It's your boy here, and I'm back here with Zach. What's going on with you, Zach?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. We're gonna talk about one of my favorite superhero slash comic book films. I feel like it's underrated. Whenever there's a top list, people don't really bring this movie up, but Logan. I really love this movie. But is there any news, anything you want to talk about, anything that's happened this week that you want to break down or talk
Yeah.
about?
So Jonathan Majors is getting his hearing and stuff this week. That's pretty big for Disney on what direction they're going to go.
Not to mention that his accuser fled the country.
Oh, then there's other accusers too. They're breaking down everything, so it's just one of them. But I
Well,
mean,
she's the official like one pressing
yeah,
charges or whatever.
yeah.
And I think it's funny that she fled the country when he flipped it on her after the evidence came out. He was like, "All right, I'm gonna press charges on you," and then she's out. She's gone. I think it's
Why
interesting.
do
I
you think his
mean,
PR team dropped him? You know, forever long ago.
uh, they dropped him because of optics, because these
Isn't that their job?
companies, you know, um, yo, that's a good point. First of all, Zach made a good point. That's their job. They're his PR team. So I feel like he should be naming names. He should be like, yo, this is who represented me before, and don't hire these people because they only want to do like little puff pieces or whatever, little easy
Hmm.
stuff. So I think it's something to say that they just broke out. It was like I'm done. I'm out. So that's a good point. You didn't The reason you were hired, you didn't even try to do anything about it. You just left. So that's something to say, man. I wonder if we can figure that out. Like that's probably a simple Google. Who was Jonathan Majors um PR team before they dropped him?
And why do you think Disney stuck with him for as long as they have, when in the past they dropped other people for lesser?
I think they really I think he froze. But I think they really dropped the ball. Well, I think they made a mistake in firing Gina Carano, and I think they
And
realized
Justin
that.
Roiland?
And Justin Roiland, and I think they realized that. Well, I don't know. I don't know too much about the Justin Roiland case. I
I
know
can
a
break
little
that
bit
down
of
for you.
the
That's easy.
yeah, I know a
Because
little
the
bit
thing
of
is
the
with,
Gina Carano thing.
well, Gina Carano, it wasn't, I mean, I'm just trying to do apples to apples with domestic violence and men. Gina Carano was kind of more of a political statement on Instagram over a post that was, okay, is it in poor taste? Yes, but can you fire her over that when other actors have made similar claims involving Holocaust and all this other stuff, and then people just, it's selective outrage,
Hmm.
But I feel like when you're pointing it towards someone who doesn't agree with you on a political spectrum in any kind of way, that's where the selective outrage comes in. But I think, I mean, she got her job back because I think one thing that I can say about Bob Iger, right, is that he's pragmatic, and
Right.
there's a lot of things he's got to fix now. And I don't know if he has the ability to fix that. And there's a lot of culture issues within the company itself.
Yeah, it's not just society; it's the whole company in itself. I mean, you saw it with Netflix when the Dave Chappelle, the last one I think came out. Netflix was just like, "Oh, you work for us and you got a problem with this? What are you gonna do? Like, we don't care. We're promoting this with
Spotify
us
did
now."
that with all the people having issues with Joe Rogan. It's the same thing. And like Spotify's like, go kick rocks. We gave him $120 million. He's
I'm
going to give us
like,
content,
I'm like,
you know?
we're all these people at Netflix and Disney and Spotify who have issues with this stuff. Like, were they homeschooled? Like, have they never faced adversity before? Like, were they never bullied? Were they never had somebody give them the finger on the road or something? Like,
Or they played Call of Duty Modern Warfare public lobby. The stuff that was said in those lobbies, dude.
Yo, it's wild, bro. It's wild, man.
Dude,
Like,
like
don't ever
early
play those lobbies
2010s,
and
I
remotely
was like
sound black. Like, don't ever do that, you know? Don't sound black in those lobbies, you know?
early 2010s, dude. I'm telling you, man, that was,
It's
and
wild.
everyone would just give it to each other. That was just kind of the expectation. Like, oh
A lot
man,
of like your mother stuff, you know. A lot of that too.
worse,
I know. A
worse.
lot of
Saying slurs, like all kinds of stuff, dude. And it's like,
have you
look,
never
I
faced
understand.
adversity before? Like you're an
It's
adult, you
just
have a job. Like what? I don't know, man. I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm just like I've dealt with stuff. You've dealt with stuff that's way more important. Like who cares? Side note, this is one article by Deadline. It says his manager was Entertainment 360, and his PR team was I just saw it. Ledic LEDE company. Lead company? Lead company? I don't
who do
know.
they represent that's big? Can you get that? I'm kind of
Uh
curious.
Let me click on them. That is a
I'm
good
sure that's
question.
public because let's be real. Let's see who they represent, and that gives you a better idea what their threshold is.
Yeah, because my thing is like y'all never like dealt with adversity with a client or something. Will Smith, Rihanna, Reese Witherspoon, Queen Latifah, Charlize Theron, Lady Gaga, Emma Stone, Pharrell, Amy Schumer, Penelope Cruz, Jennifer Garner.
All right, enough people.
That's a lot of people.
And Will Smith, he slapped someone in the Oscars, and
I wonder if they kept him after that. They
even though it was
probably
probably
did.
staged.
Nah, that was real.
You think?
Bro, Chris Rock is still
Uh,
pissed off about that.
I feel like the Oscars stuff is always staged.
Nah, nah, that was not staged. Nah. You think Will Smith, look how much he's lost since then. He lost
Yeah,
like a number of projects that they shut down
well, that's
because
good
he
because most
slapped
of his
someone.
projects been crap anyway. So
I mean, you said it, not me.
tell me I'm wrong.
You're not. I mean, bro, like,
That
what was that
doesn't
last
help.
movie that came out? Emancipation on Apple
Yeah,
TV?
I mean, imagine if he was doing like blockbusters and home runs. I think that's a different story. People view him
I
different.
I didn't see Emancipation because, personally I'm a little tired of all these um old like black slavery movies.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear too much about it. I didn't hear if it was bad, it was good. I am a big Antoine Fuqua fan and he directed that, but I was like I'm tired of these kind of movies. So I don't know what happened with that movie, but yeah, the lead LED company has a lot of big clients. Even the big studio Illumination, the studio itself, they are the PR team for them. Anonymous Content. Oh, that's a big company too. Oh,
Wow. So they have a
Pepsi
lot.
Company. Yeah, Pepsi Company.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they got a lot of people. I mean, I'm trying to see if any of these people have had controversies before to this
I mean,
magnitude.
you said Pharrell.
Yeah,
I mean, Pharrell's had his fair share.
he has. I don't know too much
I
though.
mean, he did the copyright infringement thing with that
Oh, that song with
with
Robin Thicke.
Robin Thicke. Yeah,
Yeah, I think they lost that. I can't
they
remember, or
did.
they might have won. They lost it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the you know how it is. When it comes to music, it's so tough because then there's other judges that because there isn't really a lot of basis for that. And then there's other songs that there's like a clear violation. And they're like, well, yeah, I guess it just depends on the judge you get.
And then this might get a little off topic, but I saw that Ed Sheeran won one of his cases, or his recent case,
He
because
did.
he proved that music is there's only so many chords in music, so you're going to keep songs are just going to keep using the same chords because music is also
You run out.
mathematical.
There's only so many different
Yeah.
variations.
Yeah, there's only so many variations. And then I saw a YouTube ad, a YouTube ad actually of a guy who's uh who's teaching people how to play piano quick, and he showed how all these different songs. He's like, you only need a few chords to know how to play a few chords on a piano to know how to play all these songs. And he just goes through the song, he's
Right.
singing the songs, he's playing the same chords. I'm like, this is just proof, like what Ed Sheeran's team said. It's but music is so like I don't know, it's so tight lip, it's so crazy. Like we can do things on video here on YouTube that we can't do with music. I know how fair use is used pretty much on with video, but it's kind of muddy and shadowy with music
There's not enough
online.
cases to make a precedent for it. That's like
Yeah,
clear cut. You know what I mean? All
yeah,
right. Well,
yeah.
one more thing then. So I read an article, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about how all these studios are breaking in record profits, right? Which is kind
Mhm.
of emboldening them to continue the strike without any recourse.
Right.
So, like Netflix, for example, because they're not paying production anyone anything while they're still bringing in profits from the last couple of movies because now they're starting to see that come in, right? So when do you think you will see them play ball to where you actually can have like a real honest to God negotiating with the unions?
When the well dries up, the actors
Might
and the
be
writers aren't working. We have like
they're
nothing
going to bend
slated.
first. You know that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know. But we really got nothing slated. Even some movies that were supposed to come out at the end of this year have been moved
Have
to
pushed.
2024,
Yep.
because they're like, oh, we need to, push them. Um, but it is a very muddy thing because the studios have the power, right? I mean, they have boatloads of cash to, help them on a rainy day or rainy days.
And
You know?
movies aren't the only avenue of profit for them either.
Hmm. Yeah,
Disney's
that's
got
very true.
a bunch of other stuff. They still have their streaming thing. Like there's a bunch of different ways that they can do this. They don't have to create content right now.
Yeah, it's like when someone was talking about Peacock, which is NBC Universal, and they was talking about like if you notice, Peacock ain't really doing that much like original content. Like you got Twisted Metal recently, but they've always been on the cable network model. So it's like they still make money off those residuals and stuff like that. The only problem is with the strike going on, because they still go by the old model. You're not
Mhm.
really getting new content on cable, which would transfer over to the Peacock streaming platform. I mean, you do have the streaming platform where they can make a little bit of money on the side, but I don't know too many people other than me, a friend of mine. I think you have Peacock too, other than a few people who actually have Peacock. Usually people are just like Peacock. Oh, the place where you can
Yeah,
watch The Office?
it's okay. Like it's one of those things where I turn on and off just for specific stuff because I don't know. There's not a lot. Like one that I'm really impressed with, besides Apple TV and just all the content, is Paramount Plus.
Yeah, Paramount Plus is really good. And not only are they really good, they're really doing like very their content is like high quality, high
Like
caliber
Rabbit
stuff.
Hole. Did you see Rabbit
No,
Hole?
I haven't seen Rabbit Hole.
That's very well done. You would like that.
I haven't really seen anything on Paramount Plus recently. I just saw that Warrior season 3 was on, so I stopped everything. I stopped watching Foundation. I was like, I gotta watch Warrior. I love Warrior on Max.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't really watched anything on Paramount Plus. I let my daughter watch a lot of like kid shows, Nickelodeon shows, but I usually watch movies on Paramount Plus, not really
Yeah.
shows.
You would like Rabbit Hole. It's very well done. Strange New World, Star Trek. That's good too.
Yeah, true, true. And Rabbit Hole, it did. I did see the trail, and I was like, yo, this looks like my kind of
Kiefer
show.
Sutherland still got it, man.
Yeah, he's the man. He was in he was in They Clone Tyrone on Netflix.
Was he really?
Yeah, I was like, yo, that's Keith Sutherland. Yeah, he was the
There was another show on Max that I put on last night. It's got Dennis Quaid in it.
Full Circle.
It's about it's about the kidnapping botch plot and stuff.
Yo,
Like
I was at
it's
my buddy's house, and he was like, yo, I gotta show you something. So he put on Max, he put on the trailer for Full Circle. I was like, Dennis Quaid, Claire Danes, like it had like all these names of people, and I was like, yo, what is this show? And he was like, it's a kidnapping show,
and
but it's not
Timothy
a kidnapping
Oliphant.
show.
Yeah.
Timothy
Yeah.
Elfman, yeah.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was like, it's a kidnapping show, but it's not a kidnapping show.
Yeah.
Jerome Johns or something. I forget. He has a double J alliteration name. He's on there too. But yeah, like I was like, yo, this is like an A list show and nobody's talking about it. I feel like Max has A list shows that no one
They don't
talks
talk
about
about. They don't like, well, because they
unless
don't
they're like a
advertise.
Game of Thrones type thing with all this
Yeah.
magical, fantastical stuff. People don't talk about it. Like I told him about Scenes of a Marriage. He never heard of it. I was like, what? What? Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac? You didn't see it? It's like a
It's very
miniseries.
well
It's like
done.
6 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, they need to average because you see Netflix every once in a while actually put it on like television, like
mhm.
commercials and stuff. But you don't really you see Max kind of like do the carousel of the shows that they have, but they don't like really highlight one particular show. Why
Yeah,
is
like
that?
I started
That's
doing a
weird.
deep dive in the Max and adding stuff to my list the other day because I was like, yo, I didn't even know they had this or this they show this or they made this. This looks interesting. Definitely gonna see Full Circle and stuff. Like it looks amazing. And you notice though, Netflix has cut down on a lot of their advertising after this whole like they started losing subscribers thing and everything. I was like, oh, we got to cut back on all the spending that we're doing. But I think it's helped them in the long run because they're in the black, so to speak. You know, I don't know if it's true, but they say Netflix is one of the few who's in the black. So,
It's true, yeah, because they're publicly traded. They have to disclose that. It's
oh yeah,
and they cut down on that lower tier ad service too,
yeah.
which is very fascinating. So now it's just they're really pushing the paid subscription
I
thing to
think it's
the max
because
now.
they had that the crackdown on the password
Yes.
and it really benefited them because the way they did it, I was like, oh, that's clever. There's it's going to be hard to get it for people to work around that. You know how they did it with the network, the Wi-Fi network and stuff. You have to be on the same network. It's like, oh, that's clever. That's real clever. And what do you think now with Disney Plus increasing their prices? You think
I mean, you knew that was a matter of time given how they've just been spiraling.
oh, they're acting like old Netflix where they're just throwing money down the trash. Just
And they talked
throwing it.
about how, I mean, Bob Iger even said, it's not out of the question to get Disney out of cable television,
Really?
like ABC. I'm like, so does that mean you would just sever yourself with ABC? That was a very fascinating.
I think
Okay, well,
for me, I would think that cable would be more lucrative than streaming.
I mean, they're a public channel, right? So I know there's
Yeah.
certain guidelines they got to follow versus the other channels, and I
Uh,
don't know what the cost is on something like that.
but you got to think with a regular show on cable that's 30 minutes. I think they said they have 5 commercial breaks. So that's ad time that you're
How many people
selling.
watch it versus DVR it or watch it on demand?
True.
How many people like truly watch it live? You know what I mean? Not
True,
a lot of
especially if
people.
you put it on ABC but then you kick it to Hulu or uh Disney Plus the next day.
Rob Lowe had a podcast not too long ago, and he was talking about how he had the lowest rated show in the 80s. Like there was like 32 shows or something out, right? And it
Right.
still had 16 million viewers. But that was because the pool of competition among shows and channels wasn't as great as it is now, because if you get
True.
16 million viewers for a show now, you're killing it. Like no one touches that. I think the top one was like NCIS or something, and it was at like 8 or 9 million.
Hmm.
But it's like, but you have hundreds of different channels and shows that you got to compete with now. So you're lucky if you get a million or two.
Yeah.
But the fact that, but I forget what he said was the main conflict. I think it was MASH, I want to say,
Mm.
and they got so much like viewing. It was like 30, 40, 50 million, you know what I mean? Something ridiculous like
Yeah,
that.
that's
But
crazy,
like that
bro.
just goes to show like the evolution, like, and we're in another evolutionary stage now where people just don't watch TV live, where they got stuff to do, or they would rather stream it on the app or whatever it is, right?
And now all these companies are talking together now about bundling each other so they can
It's,
all save on
it's
profits
just
and stuff.
another cable conglomerate,
That's what
really.
I'm saying. I'm
It's,
like, yo,
it's
you're
all
just
it
going
is.
back to what cable
But
was. Just go
like,
back
look,
to
here's
cable.
Comcast, like Verizon, whoever it is, right? Like they have to pay except unless it's like the three public channels, they have to pay these guys like a specific amount of money to offer their channel packages on. So it's not really much different. But
Hmm.
it's just funny how we've kind of like gone full circle with, all right, now we're going back to cable, but in a different way.
I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll
But
see what the future holds.
it's going to change again. You know that, right? And
Yeah,
I think Disney's best bet really is like maybe they should cut ties with public television and kind of do just stick to the streaming model because it makes a lot of sense. When you ask me, it's like, hey, what's the next movie you want to look into in Logan? You're like, it's on Disney Plus. I'm like, I didn't even put two and two together that the X-Men was going to be on Disney Plus. I'm like, yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense.
They bought out Fox. Well, the Fox library.
Well, yeah, besides Fox News, which they couldn't have, right? But everything
Hmm.
else
Yeah, the Fox
they
library.
they own, right? And so they own it free and clear now. Except, weren't there specific characters that weren't owned by Fox but someone else, or
Namor,
did Fox?
Universal. Universal
Okay,
had
yeah, yeah.
Namor, Hulk, but I think they got Namor back.
Okay, so
Yeah.
is Spider-Man kind of like in that weird gray zone with
Oh yeah,
Sony?
with Sony. Yeah, they're Sony's not giving up the Spider-Man cash cow. They never will.
They'll just split it with Marvel and have them just make the movies and split it with them,
Yeah,
right?
they keep partnering with Marvel because people
Smart.
think Tom Holland just because he's MC Holland, they keep thinking he's hired by Disney. He's like, no, he's a Sony employee who keeps getting licensed out to
Contracted, yeah.
get contracted out to Disney. He's a Sony employee. So if they wanted him included in Spider-Verse, they could have, but there might be something in the contract with Marvel that says Holland's Spider-Man is specifically for the MCU. You guys can't put his image out there or
Which
whatever.
probably is the case, but Sony's making so much cash with it, who cares?
Yeah, not to mention they have every single iteration of Spider-Man before Holland. They don't care. Did you see Spider-Verse? They had every cartoon one, they had every comic book one. They don't care.
I think like truly like where you're going to make a lot of money, like just think of it. Some of these studios who do not have a really good history of making like individual character movies but own the character IP, they're just going to rent them out. That's so much easier.
Yeah, it is. Because you don't have to do anything. You'll just rent
No, you
them
have
out
you have the
like
likeness,
make
it's
it for me.
ours, and they can make and Sony can still continue to make the games, right? And all the
Yeah.
others and make from the comic books and all that stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I think to them it's smart to keep it on the business decision, but I think there's going to be a point where other companies are going to have to like, you know what, that's a good idea. Maybe we should start like having specific character likenesses owned, and then we just lease them.
Yeah. Disney
Because
might have to
wasn't
start doing
wasn't
that.
Wolverine like that? Like wasn't he owned by a different company,
So
or
all
was he
the
owned by?
X-Men characters and the lore was owned by Fox. Because remember, Marvel sold their characters and
Yeah,
stuff to different studios.
I thought for some reason that they didn't have like standalone like Wolverine movies is because his likeness was owned by someone else other than
Nah, it was
Fox.
owned by Fox. That's why
Okay.
Fox kept cashing out on movies for Wolverine, X-Men Origins, which was supposed to be the first of a origin series. The next one was supposed to be Magneto, but after it lost so much money, they switched gears and turned Magneto X-Men Origins into first X-Men First Class, and that's how we got that iteration stuff. But yeah, they had X-Men Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, then they had the Wolverine, and then we have Logan. Yeah.
I wasn't
So
a huge fan of Deadpool, and
really,
no, no, like the Deadpool and the Wolverine movie.
oh, the one that's supposed to come out, but it's not now.
Yeah, well, no,
I
no, no,
thought.
no, no, no. So you know how like in Origins you had like Ryan Reynolds in there where his mouth was like so
Oh yeah,
shut and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. You didn't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that version. I don't think anybody liked that version. Yeah, I
So
mean,
they're not they're part of the universe, so to speak, in the sense like they're not canon, but they're like acknowledged, like they're their own thing.
yeah, yeah. Like it's a different universe version of uh Deadpool, and so let's get into it. Let's talk about Logan, man, because I do want to say that because I was about to say Sabretooth from that X-Men Origins movie was
Perfect.
supposed to be in Logan. Yeah, I love that version of Sabretooth. But they went in a different direction, and that's where we got X-24, which is the cloned visceral version of Logan. Which I for a story element, I think that was actually better. It would have been cool to see.
Instead of using his brother as a patsy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been cool to see Sabretooth make like a cameo appearance, but still, it was great because they wanted to keep this movie as a standalone Wolverine story, you know. And I thought that
Because
was a
he's not
good
supposed to be
idea.
poisoned. He's not supposed to die. So you can't have Logan just die. And having adamantium poisoning would just disrupt a lot of other characters who have adamantium in their body already. And now you're going to have to
Yeah.
explain, okay, so if they're going to die from this, you only have like a set period of time before you have to write them out.
Yeah, like Logan, he's been alive for 400 years or something like that
Some crazy,
at
yeah.
this point, and he got adamantium, and wasn't it
Because
World War II?
the movie, no, he got it in the 70s, 80s.
70s. Okay. 70s.
So in the movie versus the comic books, in the comic books, he's a little bit younger than what the movies make him out to be. In the
Okay.
comic books, he's like 200 years old
Mm-hmm.
because he goes through like the Civil War and all that other stuff, right? But in
Oh
this,
yeah.
like they kind of push it back a little further than that.
Yeah,
So
can I just say a little caveat? I thought it was very strange that in the first X-Men movie that came out in 2000, that it was a good story element to have a mutant or mutants be not introduced to the mutant world, and then they're introduced to the X-Men, da, 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 so the audience can experience it with them. But I thought it was weird that they chose Wolverine as that, because I'm like, this guy has been alive for hundreds of years and he's
mhm.
never run into any other mutant. Are you kidding me? Like,
But
what
then
are
he
you
had
talking
memory
about?
loss.
He had what? Oh,
He had
memory
memory
loss?
loss, didn't he?
Yeah, but like you said, he got his claws in the 70s, and then X-Men the movie takes place within the 2000s. So, like he's never run into anybody else. Never, no one ever recognized like, oh, yo, you such and such. Like this is where the issue was when they kept making movies in the past of Wolverine
There
after
needs to be a
X-Men.
linear, like when you make that movie, it's going to be a sequential order instead of jumping back and forth in these timeline things. And that's why they did Days of Future Past, because now you have a cop out with all of these different universes and iterations of them. You're like, well, it's just this version.
I mean,
You
it
know
was
that's
kind of
true, right? Because it was
yeah,
getting confusing with who's where and all that stuff, right? Because, like, let's be real, people who like, I guess sagas for comic book movies, you are halfway interested in this, in the consistency and the backstory of where it's at in the timeline and where it's at in the overall story arc.
right.
And X-Men like did a really bad job of trying to keep it like cohesive, and it was very confusing.
Especially after X-Men First Class. Then it was like, let's combine these two casts of characters together. X-Men First Class was JFK with Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then
Yeah,
like it was like decades later after each movie, but the characters still were the same age. Like Charles was still the same age, and so it was like the
yeah,
timelines.
it was definitely kind of weird.
Yeah, it was weird. I was like,
But
what? So mutants age slower than everybody else or something?
I
Like, what's
think
going on?
Logan was like a good, I guess, I think the Wolverine X-Men thing, like overall, like that origin story, that really started the one-off, like non-canon type of like
Yeah,
movies they're going to do. You know what I mean? Because then you had the Joker movies with Joaquin Phoenix, and they have another one. And then you start hearing, oh yeah, we're just going to have these like one-off stories, like Batman. How many different one-offs of Batman are there now? You know,
yeah. And X-Men Origins, I remember reading an article at the time talk about how Fox would determine which mutants would show up in which movie depending on the budget and what they could do. So that's why you had a lot of like mutants showing up that weren't following what the previous movies were doing. Like there's two different kinds of night crawlers, there's like different kinds
well,
of Emma
Deadpool made
Frost.
fun of that. Remember when he
Yeah.
was in the mansion, he was like, "We didn't have enough movie to put them in here, but
Yeah.
here's the room."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's like, it's funny how this huge mansion I keep running into you two guys. It's almost like we couldn't afford any more, actor. That's why I think, Deadpool is such a great movie and a great character because he can point out this stuff.
Well,
He's
yeah,
like
it breaks
a
the fourth
walking
wall.
honest trailer.
That's the whole point. The character breaks the fourth wall because of his psychosis. Like that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it, right? Like
To
I'm
everybody
glad
else, he's
Marvel.
insane, but he's the most sane guy walking around.
No, yeah, he's aware that he's in a movie. That's the best
Yeah.
part.
And
You
that's why
know,
I'm
like
looking forward to the third one, but strikes happen.
so the strike's happening, right? And was there? I guess they weren't done filming, were they?
Nah, nah, they was right in the middle. Even though they were filming, the writer strike happened while they were filming, and so they couldn't. Ryan Reynolds, I guess, because he's in the Writers Guild, he couldn't ad lib. They had to stick to the script, and I was like, "Whoa, that's gonna suck. That's gonna suck for a Deadpool movie." So it was kind of like when the actors went on strike, it was kind of like, okay, you know what? This is a good idea. You guys indefinitely postpone the movie until all this is resolved because it would have been weird. Like part of the charm of that of Deadpool is that they're improvising on the fly. They're changing things up based on what he's saying and stuff like that. So that's why that was a good
I
idea that
I
they shot.
really hope that they as in like Marvel now is just going to keep that same tone with Deadpool and start spreading that to like the other X-Men movies now, kind of like what Marvel did with the Guardians of the Galaxy vibe and energy, because they did that with Thor and
Hmm.
they tried and it didn't work very well. I don't think like try making it like a comedic relief type of thing. It was like, but those characters aren't slated for it. And I really
Yeah.
just hope that they don't have like Wolverine lose his edge just because of that
Yeah, I
infusion
know.
now.
Especially when I saw the yellow suit, and I was like,
That's pretty cool though.
it is, but I was like, it's kind of like, to me, it reminded me of when, before She-Hulk came out, when it was announced that Daredevil was going to be in the show, and then it was like he's going to be in the yellow suit, and they show the yellow suit, and I'm like, that looks like a totally tonal shift from what we
I don't like
expect
it.
from Daredevil.
Not
So
liking
that's
it.
why when I saw the Wolverine yellow suit, it was because there was a yellow suit at the end of the Wolverine that they
Yeah.
cut out. You can still see it in the deleted scenes, and it looked like more of the tone of what the Wolverine was. Whereas this yellow suit and Deadpool look kind of
It
like,
looked too it looked campy.
yeah. So that's why I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is a good thing. And people are like, the yellow suit. But I'm like, is it going to be a good yellow suit or is it going to be like Daredevil yellow suit from She Hulk? you know?
So I don't know. Is Logan in Deadpool 3, is he supposed to be more like the Origins Logan? Is he supposed to be more like the X-Men series Logan? Like what's the
It's a different universe Wolverine.
okay,
So
so
we
kind of
don't
explain
know.
that. Break that down for me.
Yeah, it's a different universe. I mean, because you got to remember,
Which
Deadpool,
one? I kind
we
of
don't
need to
know.
have like a reference.
Because
Okay.
Deadpool, remember, he has the time travel bracelet that
Oh, right. I
Cable
completely forgot. Yeah.
Cable gave him, but it doesn't seem to just travel different times. It travels to different universes because remember, at the end of Deadpool 2, he goes back and kills the other Deadpool. Remember?
Yeah, and
Deadpool kills the other
saves his
Deadpool.
girl and all that stuff
Yeah.
too.
So he kills the other Deadpool from X-Men Origins. He was like, "Oh, this was a bad idea," and he shoots him. like, so it's like
I
Deadpool
love
killing
how they
Deadpool.
retconned that. That was beautifully done.
Yeah,
We're
I
like, you know
loved
what?
it.
We need a time machine bracelet just to like let's erase all of the mistakes we made. At least they admitted that it was a bad mistake, and
Yeah,
that shows it.
yeah, and I love that. So we're gonna get a different iteration of Wolverine. I mean, even Logan. Like one of my notes here for the movie Logan, it was like I'm glad they got rid of that stupid comic booky hairstyle that they kept trying to recreate in every X-Men movie for him.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Don't do that.
I'm
Have
glad
him
in
as like a person, you
yeah.
know?
I'm glad in Logan they just had like a regular hairstyle. But if you look at the set photos for Deadpool 3, he has like the crazy spiked Wolverine hair, and I'm like, come on. Like
So
he
one
looks
thing I noticed
gorgeous.
with Logan, didn't Hugh Jackman look like Mel Gibson a little bit?
He
Like in
did.
terms of how disheveled, I'm like, yo, he's got maybe it's not because they're both Australian, but there's like a Mel Gibson type of thing going on.
Yeah, maybe there's a an Australian look, just like there's a Canadian look. You know, sometimes you look at an actor, you're like, oh yeah, you're from Canada. That's right. Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds. You know, if you name your kid Ryan, they're probably Canadian. But anyway, like if you look at some of these, um, what's it called? Uh, like like what was I about to say? Oh, I just had a brain fart. I had a brain fart. You said something about Wolverine. We was talking about the silly hair. What did you say about Wolverine again?
Oh, about he looks like Mel Gibson.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's funny because every movie, especially in X-Men Origins, he looked like Clint Eastwood. Like he Hugh Jackman has this thing where when he looks rugged, he looks like a young Clint Eastwood to me. And then in this movie, he looked like Mel Gibson. Like I was like, he just keeps looking like a different guy.
How would you feel? Let's just say if you wanted to do like a young Logan type of thing, where if you wanted to keep that Logan universe of where he like dies and all that stuff, do you
Mhm.
think that they can build from that, or you think that's it?
Like, do I think that they could make like a prequel story
Mhm.
out of this? I think they could. The interesting about this movie, it's a standalone movie, but it still follows the previous X-Men movies. So if you see this
Yeah,
movie
because
and
that's
never
Patrick
seen
Stewart's Xavier in there, which I loved.
exactly, and they mention all the stuff like in a deleted scene of Logan, when they're at the table having dinner with the people on the farm, um, they're just laughing it up and stuff like that. And then Charles slips into like a lucid state, and he's like, you know, he did love a woman, and then he ended up killing the woman he loved, but he had to save all of us. And they're all at the table like, what is going on? And Logan's looking at him like, yo, shut up. Like, don't freak these people out, man. But they deleted that scene. But yeah, like it, if you didn't see any of the previous X-Men movies, you could still enjoy this movie. But I will say this because I met people who haven't seen any X-Men movie and watched and they still love Logan. But if you've seen all the previous X-Men movies and you saw how um, Charles's relationship with Wolverine opens up and grows, it makes this movie hit even harder. Because Wolverine is older than Charles, but he still looks at Charles as a father figure. To where instead of saying when they're like, who's this guy? Instead of saying, oh, this is my brother, he says, this is my father, Chuck, and this is my daughter. You know, so it really shows how he views this man who's actually younger than him, but has taught him so much more than anybody else in his
Yep.
life, which is a wild concept to think about. And this whole movie, he's carrying him the whole time. He has to take care of him, but he still looks at him like this is my father, like this is a father figure to me. Like this man brought me up from nothing, gave me purpose, you know. So I thought that was a really great story tool that they used that if you've seen the previous movies, you're like, dang, that's wild. And even if you didn't know the previous movies, you still know as a comic book fan that Wolverine is older than Charles. But he views him as a father figure, which is wild.
How do you
And
feel
then
about how the
mhm,
premise was he was dying from poisoning? Like, what's your response to that?
I thought that was interesting. I mean, I thought it was like something that's believable. If you're going to change a character's like origin or a character's purpose or a characteristic of them, at least make it believable. You know, a metal poisoning does make sense. You're like, "Oh, he just heals. He has a healing factor." But I guess because he like you said he's older in the movies, age finally starts to catch up with him that maybe if he didn't have the metal inside him, he would still live a healthier, longer life
Yes.
than he had in Logan. But because he has this metal that's just seeping into his body, because I guess his body's enzymes are trying to break it down because it's a alien thing inside of him that's been inside of him for decades.
Yeah. So and since his healing factor is lower because it had to be in overdrive for so long, it can't replicate anymore the way that it should.
Yeah, and James Mangold was setting this up since the Wolverine because that's when he came in. He because a different guy directed X-Men Origins, but James Mangold was setting this up in the Wolverine. So you got to wonder if what happened in the Wolverine kind of like backtracked his healing factor because for a long time in that movie he was poisoned and he had that thing on his heart that prevented him from healing. So
Hmm.
maybe something happened, maybe something didn't, but maybe something sparked in him that shouldn't have happened from the last movie. But yeah, I thought it was believable. You know, if you're gonna go down if you want to weaken a character that's basically immortal, I think it makes sense that it's like, oh, the thing that made you a
Throws
better
himself in
killer.
like jet turbine engines and still alive type of thing, like just to take it
Yeah,
down, like crap like that. You know what I mean?
yeah. And if you played the X Men Origins video game, which was better than the movie, he literally jumped from a plane, fought a Sentinel robot, fell to the ground, and survived. Like his body, you see it in the game. It was a rated M game, and like his
It
body
was
grew back.
Was he like in a reactor too, like some kind of nuclear fire reactor, and he
Yeah,
was like had a skeleton and he grew back? Like what the heck is this?
depending on what comic book iteration, like I think like he can't have his brain damaged. As long as that's not damaged, he can grow back whatever, and he
Well, that's
can
why he had
heal.
animated plating because nothing pierces that.
Exactly. So that's why he could survive. But I mean, the character's wild, but I thought it was cool to see him like deal with that in this movie. I mean, the man,
Dealing with
like,
mortality, and he still had no qualms about going out and knowing that, hey, next time I get shot, I could still be dead.
yeah, like the man he's trying to fight and his claws won't even come out all the way. He has to pull them out. When they go back in, you see like the pus seeping through the incisions on his hand. I'm like, oh dad, look at the detail of this. Like you see every scar on his body. Like he actually has scars now. Like when he heals, the scar is still there. You see the seams from his claws. It doesn't heal anymore. Like I'm like, dang man, like this guy looks like he's just being tortured every day. Just every breath he takes. And he has a limp. He permanently has a limp. The same limp that he had in the Wolverine. I'm like, oh, so old wounds are coming back.
Hmm.
So I'm like, this guy's going through it, man.
I hope they really. I think they. I hope any studio or anyone that continues to make superhero movies, if they want to do an origin, I
Mhm.
really hope that it doesn't like go down this path. Like I really want to see continuity and have like
Oh
some
yeah.
kind of play on that. You know, the one-off stuff is like I don't know. It doesn't really interest me so much.
I
It's
mean,
just
I gotta tell you, Zach, I don't see that ever happening. I see the opposite. I mean, with all these companies who are just like, oh, throw money at the problem. Oh, let's get this movie out in a year
it's
instead of
not.
giving it
It's
time
so
to
not
cook it.
original. I'm like, let's just start, finish up whatever storyline that you have, and then go make a new one or something of whatever version that you have. Because even in comic books, there's different versions because there's different series of stuff, right?
Hmm.
That's fine. Just do that. But I just feel like they were flirting with the fact that he was kind of like part of the other X-Men movies, and then he wasn't. You know, in terms of like that. I'm like, I'm not a big fan of the, you can't have your cake and eat it too type of thing, you know?
Yes, man. Yes, and I think George Lucas set a bad precedent for prequels because people are like, hey, the
Oh,
prequels
oh,
weren't as good as the original, but he made a crap ton of money. So let's just do that. And everybody's been doing that since.
dude,
Let's do a
don't
prequel.
even,
Let's do a
that the
prequel.
whole prequel thing. I was triggered last night. It's a little off topic. I was out because Heather's like cousin came out from Mexico and he was telling me he loves Star Wars, right? And he
Hmm.
was telling me his like top three favorite Star Wars movies is Episode 5, Rogue One, and Episode 3. And I'm like, and he talks about how he likes the prequels, and I'm like, but anyway, I went on a rant for 25 minutes. We've already like went in this before, right? I'm like, there has never been a successful franchise that's ever been able to flip flop in timelines
Oh yeah,
without it being successful and making sense ever.
yeah. And some people might argue House of the Dragon, but I'm like, it still didn't make
No,
sense.
because there was it just no, it didn't make any sense. I felt like David Lynch directed that whole series. I feel like
Like, how many time skips do we need? Like, I don't even recognize these characters. I don't know who's who until they say their
there's always a
name.
time skip, and it's like 10, 15 years, and they make it seem like it never happened.
I feel like I'm the only one on Earth who was like, "Hey, House of the Dragon was decent, but it wasn't spectacular." Everybody I talked to, like, "What? You didn't like House of the Dragon? You just don't like anything." I'm like, "Calm down, man." Like, it was hard to follow. It was. I felt like I was watching the first season of The Witcher, where I was like, "Who's what? What's going on? What timeline is this? Who just died? Whose son is that? Who's born?" Because everybody has white hair. Every single person has white hair.
So you
I'm
have
like,
no
"What's
way if
going
they're
on?"
old or not.
Yeah,
You have no idea where they're at.
no one has any standout characteristics because they're all inbred, so they all have white hair. And then we have these time skips, and I'm like, wait, whose kid is that? Oh, that's your kid? You just had another one. Okay, wait,
Are there
what?
more X Men movies being made or like slated? I mean, I'm
No,
standalone X Men.
I think
No,
Deadpool. I think Deadpool 3 was supposed to be like the catalyst that introduced mutants into the MCU as a whole. I know we had it in Miss Marvel, but
I mean, is
I,
Deadpool a mutant or is he his own thing?
he's a mutant.
Okay.
Yeah, in the first Deadpool movie, they talk about how they turned him into a mutant. Like they
Yeah,
activated his
because a
mutant
mutant is
X
like a
gene.
natural thing. He's still created,
Yeah,
so I didn't know what the classification of that was.
because they said in Deadpool, he said, "Look, we're gonna torture you to activate your mutant gene, and if you don't have one, well, sorry."
So he had one.
Yeah, so he had one.
He
He
had
had a
one, but the
dormant gene.
power, but we didn't. He had a dormant gene which was not assigned to a power yet, and they just gave him the power.
Yeah, like they activated, like they put him through all this torture. The only thing that worked was that oxygen tank, and he healed himself. But the
Okay.
cancer spread so much that his body is constantly healing himself, which is actually the same thing in the comic, which is why he wears a mask because he looks crazy because his body is constantly healing itself, but the cancer is constantly spreading. So it's the same thing as the comic.
And he's just deformed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because when I was watching the first movie, I was like, "Oh, his mission, the whole movie, is to change his face." That's different from the comics. But then the guy was like, "Oh no, I could never change your face. I just said that," and I was like, "Oh, so they are following the comic. That guy's just a dick."
And he's a psychopath. Like he has multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, yeah, but
But
I with Logan, um, I did not know that this movie was nominated for an Oscar for
yeah, when you told me that, I completely
best adapted screenplay, which I'm like, yes, dope. And for those out there, you can actually download the um the screenplay for this. I did, and there's like a paragraph at the beginning of the screenplay talking about how this isn't your usual X-Men Wolverine movie. This is rated R. You're going to see blood when blood is on screen. You're going to see this. He's going to be this, that, and the third. I was like, that's a very interesting thing that you don't see really in screenplays. You know, I got a couple of screenplays, and I'm like, they don't really do stuff like that. But and then I watched behind the scenes where one of the screenwriters, Scott Frank, he was talking about, yeah, we put that there because we really wanted to show people, we wanted to let people know, whoever read this is not going to be a PG-13 Wolverine. This is going to be a real gritty character study on him, and when he's killing people, you're going to see it, and this, that, and the third. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting because they don't hold anything back in this movie, man. Like people's limbs get cut off, people get
I like it.
claws in the face, you know.
And brain and there's gore and stuff. Yeah,
Well, it's interesting because Wolverine has always been an assassin. His most famous line is, "I'm the best at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice." And meanwhile, every movie besides this he played in was PG-13.
very tapered down.
It reminded me of the old school Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon where it's like they had all these weapons, but they never used the weapons. They always was fighting with their fists. And they pointed that out in the crossover with the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with that old one. They was like, hey, you guys are whack because you have swords and you don't even use it. I'm like, thank you. We've been saying that for decades. Like, you know, so I feel like in the old Wolverine movies, I mean the old X-Men movies, he always used them as a tool instead of a weapon. And when he used them as a weapon, he would slice somebody. You wouldn't see anything. They would just slice them. They would fly off screen. Oh,
With the lightsaber, when they like attack with a lightsaber, there's
yeah,
nothing that comes from it. I'm like, this thing cuts through metal, and you're telling me this guy's limb didn't just get wanked off, you know?
yeah. But you see the blood and everything. There's been so many times where the camera's right on somebody, he just goes. You just see them just you see the life leave their eyes.
Was
I'm like,
Deadpool
oh,
going to be
jeez.
the same type of thing? Deadpool 3 is because so according to IMDb, it's supposed to be here like May 5th next year. Is that a realistic
Wishful
timeline?
thinking. I don't think so.
Okay.
Because we might not even go back into production on anything until January if negotiations go the right direction.
Well,
So,
wrong direction.
oh yeah, yeah, wrong direction. So we'll see. I do believe they were trying to keep it in the same vein as Deadpool 1 and 2, where they did show, dismemberments and stuff like that, and crazy gags and colorful language, we'll say. But I feel like you can't do Deadpool. Once you go full Deadpool, you can't go backwards on Deadpool. You know what I'm saying?
No,
You
no.
know, Wolverine has been in PG-13 movies, so you can kind of walk back that rated R because he's only had one rated R movie, but you can't do that with Deadpool. We've seen Deadpool in all the strappings of an actual comic book Deadpool, so you can't walk that back. You're not getting you're not getting that back.
So, who was your favorite performance in Logan? Like, I think Boyd Holbrook has done a very good job playing bad guys. What do you think?
Yes, him and Patrick Stewart in this movie, gold. That's not to say that Hugh Jackman didn't do good, but standing out, Boyd Holbrook and Patrick Stewart, I feel like stole the show for me.
Patrick Stewart's just fantastic in everything he does.
Yes.
Tell me, I mean,
The man is gold. There's a reason why he's called Sir Patrick Stewart. There's a reason why he was knighted. And going and doing my theater rotation at UD and watching all those old theater movies, I'm like, oh snap, that's Kenneth. That's young Kenneth Brenner. That's young Ian McKellen. That's young Patrick Stewart. Like watching all those
and Patrick
old things.
Stewart and Ian McDermott were at the same theater school in England.
Really
Yes.
interesting. Well, that is true. Yeah, that is true. I did see a young Ian McDermott. Yo, it's crazy. Like all we
They're
did
all
was
trained
watch
together
old
classically
plays.
for this stuff.
Yeah, all we did was watch
Shakespeare,
old
dude.
plays,
These
and
guys, they're, yeah.
all those guys and gals were all together, and now they're all world famous, like
Old.
Sir. They're
All
like
of
all
them. All
knighted
of
and
them are
stuff.
knighted.
Yeah, it's crazy,
All
man.
of them
It's
are knighted. Isn't that
crazy.
crazy? You're so
Yeah,
good at your craft and acting that you get knighted by, well, it was the queen at the time. Like, that just blows my mind.
that's wild, man.
That's like
That's
getting the
wild.
presidential Medal of Freedom type of thing. Like, that's that type of equivalent. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd rather be
that's like
knighted.
if
That's cooler.
if Joe Biden gave Denzel Washington the Presidential Medal of Freedom for being in The Equalizer 3. It's
I
like
don't
you
even
were
know if Joe
so
Biden would
good.
be able to say anything in complete sentences to make
He'd
it
be like,
say
"Why are
make
we here?"
sense. Snips them when he puts it on, you know. All right, so I'm looking at Boyd Holbrook real fast, right? Because
Right.
I was just curious of like the other things he's done. He's in the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, I remember when I saw the trailer and I was like, "Oh, that's Boyd Holbrook." Still not gonna see it. Like, I'm like, I don't know. He looked like he was playing a the villain of the movie. But it's funny that you mentioned that because I wanted to ask you and I totally forgot months ago. I was like, Boyd Holbrook is in Indiana Jones. What if he was the next to take up the mantle? Could you see that?
Yeah,
I could. It would be a different kind of Indiana Jones movie where it wouldn't be so
yeah,
quippy, I guess, jokey. But
witty.
he's still like very like
Yeah,
charismatic and charming
I
and
like it.
sinister
Yeah,
when he wants to be. Even in this movie, like he was like a very sinister, charming villain, and he like I kind of wanted more from him out of Logan than we got, but it was still good. Still very good. But I
I'm
could see
looking
him
at Hugh.
playing.
I'm looking at Hugh Jackman's upcoming projects. Right.
Mhm.
I'm actually very fascinated with this. He's going to be playing the Apostle Paul in a movie.
Interesting. Let all the let all the what am I trying to say? All the societal issues with Hugh Jackman playing the Apostle Paul come about. Let's see it. Same when what's her
But
name?
that's no. But think of it like Paul in the Bible was a murderer. Like he wasn't a good person, and so there was redemption, right? So like I can actually see this being like very fascinating on how they approach this.
Yeah, who's directing it though?
It's in pre-production right now. Let's take a look.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't think the only person that's in here that has any kind of credits to production is Matt Cook. He's writing it.
Okay.
Do you know
Hmm.
who Matt Cook is?
No, I don't.
He
Well,
did
let's just say he was writing it. Now they're on strike, so we'll see.
he did Triple Nine,
Okay.
The
Okay.
Dole, and Patriots Day.
Okay.
I know The Dole. The Dole was good.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a good Woody Harrelson, Liam Hemsworth, Neeson, Jesus, Hemsworth movie. All right, so that's kind of interesting that he's writing it because he's used to doing like action and stuff, and there isn't. I mean, I guess if you consider stoning people for being Christian action, I guess that's one thing, but
Or maybe they'll dive into his murderous past, show some stuff from that.
ooh, I like that. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so
Maybe
and the
they'll
other
do like a
one,
Godfather thing where they show his murderous past juxtaposed to his redemption arc. You know,
okay, I like that. There's no year attached to it, so it's pre-production. This is probably a few years out, and he's in a TV miniseries called Fairway Downs.
sounds
TV's
like
where
a
it's at, dude. We've talked about this before. TV is probably like what was it 20, 30 years ago? Movie actors like I'll never do TV, and now look, TV is like where it's at, especially
now
with streaming
TV's the
services.
apex. you know,
And then he's in The Good Spy.
the good spy. I don't
Oh,
know.
this is Middle East stuff in the bombings of Beirut in the 80s.
Uh,
That's where he plays a spy.
hmm. Apostle Paul.
Interesting.
Interesting. Hmm. I mean, you can't really go too wrong with Hugh Jackman, you know. But I didn't see the that Peter Pan project he did. I'm not really a
You
musical
did
guy.
I
I'm not really a musical. Now, Hugh Jackman is 100% a musical guy. He was a
100%
Broadway
he is.
performer, but I I like his dramatic work. I'm I'm good on the musical stuff. You
So
know,
Patrick Stewart's probably retired after Picard ending, right?
he's got to be. I thought he was already retired, and then he came out of retirement for Picard. I might be wrong, but he's got to be.
Did I tell you the story about how Heather met him?
No.
Okay, so he was at the Star Trek convention of the 30-year anniversary of Next Generation. This was several years ago. And you know how she is a Shakespeare nerd, to say the least. Anyway, she's got a picture of him of Hamlet, right? And she met him and he signed the picture and everything. It's really cool.
I've
Tiny
seen
dude
that.
though.
I think I've
Like he's
seen that
tiny
tape of
dude.
him playing Hamlet. I've definitely
Yeah.
seen Kenneth
You've
Brenner
had to have seen
play King Lear.
you go into film school and you doing theater. There was no way that you didn't know Macbeth. My bad, not Hamlet. It's
Oh, okay.
Macbeth. But
I've seen
I
like three
know for a
different
fact
Hamlet
you've had
productions.
to have seen that still.
Yeah, yeah, I had to have because I've seen so many Hamlet, Macbeth, King Lear, Henry. I've seen so many
You don't
different.
do film and theater and there's no Shakespeare in there. That's
Oh no,
impossible.
no, you have to. You have to. That's like, especially because I was doing the acting minor, so you have to watch all
I'm
that.
curious for you. How would they do superhero renditions like Logan on stage? Would that work?
Logan, you could. I mean, obviously, you're going to cut out like the car chases and stuff, but anything is possible if you can do Lion King on Broadway and it be successful. You know what I'm saying? Well, let me not say that because
Yeah,
they tried to
that's
do the same people who made Lion King Broadway tried to make Spider-Man on Broadway, and that was disastrous. So bad.
Spider-Man on Broadway.
Yeah, look, there's a whole documentary on YouTube. Look that up. But it's wild. If you look at the costumes, how much they changed the story. It didn't follow any of the comic books or any of the movies. It was like its own story, and it was a very strange, mystical story. When Spider-Man is more of a sci-fi character, but yeah,
They
it
need to have
didn't
a
work out.
Spider-Man X-Men crossover because that was great in the comics.
Oh yeah, yeah. I feel like Spider-Man
Is that a
crossovers,
thing? Can
period,
that be a
in the
thing?
comics, it can be, but I feel like Spider-Man made every crossover better in the comic books. Him
He
and
did,
Deadpool.
100%. Yep.
Whenever there's a
Because they
Deadpool or
fought.
Spider-Man
Yep. And
crossover, yeah.
Wolverine and Hulk crossover. That was
Oh yeah.
great.
I still think people want to see Hugh Jackman fight any iteration of Hulk to this day.
Now it's possible because I think Marvel owns the rights to Hulk now.
I mean, they own some of the rights. Like they can still do movies with him, just not a standalone movie of
I
him.
think they can't hear Marvel.
Unless they got those rights back. I know they got Namor back, I think, after the Black Panther movie.
Yes, they have it back as of June 17th. They purchased it from Universal. Universal
Oh,
had it for more than 15 years.
yep. Oh, it's a wrap then. But at this point, his legacy is so tarnished. Does anybody want to see Hulk anymore
I want
after
to see
She Hulk?
Eric Bana Hulk again. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah, we could still get that
Imagine
awesome
it. Let's just do.
Hulk.
Let's do a one-off movie with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine,
Mm.
right? And then Eric Bana as Eric, as
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner. Thank you. I was.
Mm.
I knew it was Bruce. I was like, wait, I knew it was Banner. I was just making sure. That would be great. What do you think?
I think it'd be great. I think the Hulk was a movie before its time. Aside from
Which
some
one? The
the
Eric
first
Bana
one,
version with Ang
yeah.
Lee? Yes.
Aside from some questionable editing choices,
Ang Lee does that though. That's his thing. You know that. He takes risk. Like I'm not a big fan of his work, but he definitely takes risk and I can appreciate him for that.
yeah, you can't knock him for that. Um, yeah, whenever he finds out a new filming technique, new technology, he like goes all in on it. That's that Gemini Man with Will Smith. He went all in it and didn't pay off. But
Wasn't a fan. I think it was mostly because of the plot more than anything.
oh yeah, the plot
I
was
don't think it was
bad.
production. I don't think it was the production or anything. It was just the plot. And he had nothing to do with the plot.
I mean, the plot was bad. The CGI wasn't favorable either.
That was stupid.
the choice to do the film in a higher frame rate wasn't smart either. There's a reason
Not with the
why
CGI the way it was. No.
no, no. There's a reason why movies are still 24 frames per second. Especially with all those CGI and fight scenes. Fight scenes in regular 60 frames or higher, they don't hit as hard, you know. And I remember
It's too
people talking
fast.
about that.
It's too much. Like you're
No, no,
doing
it,
60.
it's not that it's too fast. With the higher frame rate, you see everything. You see that the punches don't connect. You see
Yeah, I know.
like
That's what I'm
everything.
saying. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not.
Nah, that's why people didn't like the Hobbit movies when what's his name, Peter Jackson tried to do the 48 frames per second. It was just too weird and too jarring. Of like the way the little feet would move with the hobbits when they were, especially that waterfall scene. Because I seen that and I was like, that looks so strange. Like, what's going on here?
Well, imagine like because you have like video games doing 60 and 120 frames per second. Imagine a movie at 120.
Yeah, because that's in video games. You're actually hitting. I mean, these people aren't real. You're actually hitting each other and stuff like that. Maybe movies like
You do
Spider Verse will
120
start to
and this
do.
guy's like 5 feet away from the actual punch and he still gets thrown back. That's great.
It's funny because I remember when I first bought the DVD to Matrix Reloaded, and I watched the first fight scene with him fighting all those agents in the beginning, like the three agents, and I watched it in slow mo so I could learn the choreo, and you could see he's just not hitting them at all. he's just he's just like, and then like he'll go to punch and he'll stop right here, bring it back, and the guy still reacted. I'm like, oh my gosh! Like, there's a reason why we watch films at the frame rate that we do. It's just
Logan
better
was
and it's
24, right?
Yeah, 24 frames is film, 30 is usually internet and TV, but if you're filming a fight scene, you don't want to do anything less than
What's one
60.
thing you would change about Logan?
One thing I would
Whatever it
change
is.
about. One thing I would change about. I don't know, man. Yo, it's a great film. I don't know. Um, I like how full circle it was. A lot of the shots in the movie were inspired by The Last of Us, the game, and then
Hmm.
now we had The Last of Us, the show, come out. You know, and I don't know. I feel like Logan did it better, but it is what it is. But anything I would
Compared to the
change,
show?
yeah,
Or yeah, okay, yes, I agree. Not compared to the game, compared to the show, absolutely.
yeah,
The show
yeah.
didn't really resonate with the relationship that it should have been. It was
Nah,
very, it
nah,
wasn't natural.
nah. But I don't think I would change anything. Let me think on that. I'll think on that. But I do want to point out one line that I thought was just a great line in the movie. It's when Logan comes in to take care of Charles in that dome thing, and it's the beginning of the movie, and he gives him his pills. He's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Charles, you know who I am." And then he takes the pills. He gets a little lucid, and he's like, he says to Logan, "I always know who you are. I just sometimes don't recognize you." I was like, "Dang, that shit hits different, bro." I mean, this is a guy he's met. If we're going chronologically through the movies, the year 2000 was the first movie where they officially met, right? We're excluding First Class timeline, and this is
And
2017.
Origins, the Origin one too, because
Oh
he
yeah.
met him sooner than that too, right?
Well, they
Yeah.
were in the same movie. They didn't have any scenes together. Charles just
Okay.
showed up, but
But Charles is aware of him.
yes, Charles is pretty much aware of every mutant. Um, so it's like 17 years later, and he's really they've really grown close with each other, and he's just it's like you could even see it in the scene before he realizes who Wolverine is. He's like looking at him like, "Who are you?" Who you could kind of tell he knows who he is, but he's like, "Yo, who are you? Why are you giving me these pills?" And it's just like it's kind of like a heartbreaking relationship. I know some people out there have had some family members deal with Alzheimer's and stuff like that, and it's just you kind of get reminiscent of that when you watch this film of how like this guy can literally read minds, but he's losing his mind, and the idea of that. And I thought that was an idea that really drove this movie because the whole idea they hint at it is that Charles killed all the mutants in the world while he was attached to Cerebro. Like something happened. I think he had a seizure when he was attached to
Is that what
Cerebro.
happened?
Yep. And they talk about it behind the scenes, but they don't really say it in the movie. They just hint at it. And that's why a lot of times in the movie, Charles will start crying and talking about what have I done? What happened? What did I do? Or he talks about how he did something very bad. And what he means is that he killed all the world's mutants. But I thought what was interesting too is that
And then the
Wolverine in the movie,
government prevents them from being made with the chlorine stuff, right? So that was their
yeah,
opening to like controlling the population.
yeah, and the guy talked about because Wolverine says there hasn't been a mutant born in 25 years, and then the guy talks about that scientist guy talks about how like we prevented your kind from coming back and corrected the genome that activates it, and so the government went from preventing mutants to making their own
Yeah.
mutants with those kids. And you got to give a shout out to Daphne Keene who played X-23. Laura, I think this was like her first big thing. I do remember them talking about how her parents are theater people and how they were looking for
She's a good
somebody.
actress.
Yeah, they were looking for a kid who could do all this action stuff. I mean, she didn't do it obviously. They had a
You
stunt
know, you
double.
know, she's in his Dark Materials with James
Yeah.
McAvoy. Very well.
Hmm.
It's a good show. It's kind of tough to follow, but they do a
As
good
all
job.
these fantasy shows are.
She should have played Ellie in The Last of Us.
That's right. But you know why? Because the other chick was in Game of Thrones. That's the only reason.
Stupid. Oh, it's like I don't
She
know.
would
I
have been
think
a
it's because
better fit, bro.
she checks off a box, the one for Game of Thrones. Like, but what's her name? Bella Ramsey.
Hmm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's
know what
because
you're
she checks
talking about.
off a box because she's androgynous of some kind, but it's just
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But Daphne Keene would have been so much better. Yo, you're right, bro. This role, her role in
especially
Logan,
when
is
she gets older.
perfect.
Especially when she gets older, she could play intense way more, and it's believable.
Yeah, this would have that would have been a perfect role for her. But yeah, she killed it in this movie at her young
She did a good
age.
job.
She spoke Spanish. They needed somebody who spoke Spanish and English, and she killed it. And just seeing their dynamic as father and
She's only
daughter,
18, dude. Like that's perfect, for it.
yeah, she probably still
It's
looks
crazy.
young
She's
too.
only 18. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's only 18.
no, I
She's
mean like
only.
for the Ellie part in Last of Us,
Oh,
Ellie's
dude, yeah,
younger,
dude, yeah.
so she
She
probably
she
could have
could pull
played
a 15.
because
Yeah,
Bella Ramsey's like 18, I think.
she's older. She's almost 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, she could have played it. She could have played it
Uh,
honestly, but it is what
so
it is.
here's one thing I think I found interesting. So you know how like they have classifications of mutants where there's only like two level fives or whatever it
Yeah,
is, and who's that? That's Jean Grey and Magneto, right?
right.
Okay. Um, Logan's not rated,
Nah,
and he does probably the most damage at anyone.
physical damage, yes. I think those mutants are ranked on
How
like,
many people has he killed? Let's be real. Okay, let's just take it a step back.
well, you gotta elongate it because he's been alive for a while than the average human.
Yeah, but I think they're only going based on his powers more than what he was equipped with. If you have an
Yeah, that's true.
indestructible steel, you should get a couple notches up, if you
I
ask
mean, let's
me.
be honest. Let's be honest. Those X-Men comic books, pretty much every mutant goes Omega level at some point. Iceman, Rogue, like all these people go Omega level. I think one time Wolverine might have gone where he like grew his hair out or something like that. Or maybe that was Saber too. But yeah, pretty much every mutant goes Omega level in the comic books at some point. You
So
know,
how did Logan not die if Xavier killed all of them?
I think it has to do with his adamantium brain because they talk about how he has what's it called? He's not affected as much, and I think it's because
Oh yeah, as other mute.
he
Yeah,
has
yeah.
healing plus the adamantium around his brain helps out. That's why Laura was able to not be as affected as much as like Logan was, So I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool how they achieved the effect of the brain thing, where they basically just shook the camera and then they added a camera stabilization in post production, and it created that shutter effect.
I like
So
that.
it wasn't even CGI. And I did it first here at Nomader Productions. This movie came out in 2017. My short film came out in 2015, and we did it first, baby. We did it first. But anyway, I'm not going to say the name of my short film that I did it in because it was a disaster, but that effect was achieved the same way and it came out first. But
You did a dud, didn't you?
did it
Straight
done.
dud.
But yeah, I did it. But I just like how there wasn't an abundance of CGI, but it was just a great movie nonetheless. Like Marvel and Star Wars need to get this. Well, basically Disney, because they're both owned by Disney, needs to get it to their mind. More CGI does not equal a good product. It
Mm-hmm.
just does. Look at the last episode of Secret Invasion. It was horrible. It
Not a fan. I'm not gonna watch any more of those shows.
Nah, me neither. I'm not even looking forward to any new Marvel movies. But I just like how I just there's so many superhero movies now that
I watched Loki again.
yeah, I'll watch that. But there's so many movies that have come out. The Batman, The Dark Knight, Logan, like so many of these movies that come out with little to no CGI and they just get critical acclaim. And these studios still can't get it through their thick heads to the point that they make Quantum Mania where everything is fake. The only thing that's
Yeah,
real is
because
the
we want to have
actor's
a
head.
superhero that's like natural and realistic, not have like space powers.
I mean, you can do space powers and still have a good movie. I mean, Man of Steel. Look at that. That was a
It's
good
true.
movie.
Yes, very true.
And people don't talk about they don't give Man of Steel the credit that it deserves. But it's just I don't know. If you Look, if you write a good character and you write a good story, everything will fall into place pretty much for the most part.
Hmm.
Logan's a great testament to that. We don't need all this crazy CGI. I thought the CGI that was in the movie was amazing. The doubling of his face was
Hmm.
great. When they were in the same scenes together and they just the guy who was playing the opposite of Hugh Jackman, they would just put Hugh Jackman's face on it and it was perfect. It was fine. It worked.
Hmm.
But I don't know, man. These studios need to learn from this. Logan is still underrated. It's probably my favorite film of 2017. Might even be my one of my favorite superhero films, period. But
Oh,
it's great. Yeah, man. It's one of my favorites, man. One of my favorites. I watch it so many times. I love this movie so much that I do have the Blu-ray. I watched the black and white version. I loved it even more. So yeah, that's Logan to me. I'm so glad we got to talk about this movie. I love it. I mean, granted, we could have went even deeper into it, but I can't really find too much wrong with it. I still don't even know what I would change about it. It's just great. I love it. Everything falls into
maybe.
place.
I mean, I think the one thing I would probably change is maybe have Xavier die sooner.
But then
Set the
we wouldn't
tone.
have got so many of those good like interactions with the three of them together, traveling together,
Yeah.
her seeing what a surrogate family could be, Logan.
But
Then
she's
that's the
feral.
thing.
That's the whole point. Like that's the thing is
Yeah.
like she's supposed to be a weapon, so you can't humanize something that's like already been born to be a killer. That's just how I see it.
Well, that's true, but that's why I'm gonna say like that's the thing for Wolverine and Laura both. They get to see what family could be. They get a taste of it. They
Well,
think that they're
well,
going to get away,
Logan
and then
knew.
they take it away from them
Logan knew what it was to have a family.
to an extent. I mean, like even in the mansion when he was with the other X-Men, Logan was still a loner. He would still leave and then come back sometimes. Like he can never like just sit down. But the fact that Laura came into play, who's his daughter, you just can't leave her. That's your daughter. Rogue
Hmm.
was like his surrogate daughter for the old movies, but he would still leave and come back. But here's his daughter who is very feral, who he has to help because he's been there.
Right.
He's been that tool. He's been that weapon. But they get a little taste of what it's like, and they're like, "Oh, we could probably go on like this forever." And then it gets taken away from them when they get caught up by that transigen group. And then it's like all hell breaks loose. Laura and Wolverine.
Transcript. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And I don't know, this movie might have a perfect ending because in the Wolverine, the girl predicted that he would die covered in blood, holding his heart in his hand. And how did he die? Covered in
Yep.
blood,
Exactly.
holding his daughter's hand in his heart. I mean, her hand in his hand, and he says, "So this is what it feels like." And some people speculate that he means death. Other people means love. Either way, it still works. The line works, and the ending is
Yeah.
just perfect. So that's why I'm like, if you're gonna bring Wolverine back, just reboot him because Logan was perfect. Now,
Timothy Chalamet should play him.
Timothy Chalamet, nah, he's gonna have to put on like 50 pounds of muscle.
More like
that kid
100,
is
but yeah.
that kid is skinny. You see him in Dune when he has his shirt
Yeah,
off
yeah.
and that one. I'm like, geez, I just want to give this kid a
He's not even,
burger.
he's like 28, right?
Yeah, I know. I feel like
Like,
he stays that size just so he can get
he's
those
not
kind of
much younger
roles.
than us. He's like 28. I'm like, he's 28. What? I thought he was like 20.
And that's what I thought. And he plays like a 14-year-old in Dune or something like that. I'm like, Jesus, man. Give that kid a bag of cheeseburgers for his birthday. Eat up,
Jeez,
kid.
eat a couple Wendy's things.
I just want to give him that old school muscle milk. Here you go,
Mm,
buddy. Drink
yeah.
it up, man. Drink it up. But yeah, that was Logan, guys. I mean, you got anything else to add, bro?
No, I mean, I think we covered anything, but I'm curious to hear if what people have thought of it, if they ever watched it, and what's your favorite one-off superhero movie that's not connected to anything? I'd like to know.
That's a good pull. That's a good pull. What's
Yeah.
yours? Do you have an answer?
Batman.
The Batman.
Hmm.
Don't forget to add the.
It's a different thing. You're right.
It is a different
I
thing.
think it's good. It's very well done. I'm not a big fan of the Joker,
Me neither.
or the Hawk. You know, we've talked about that too. The
Venom
original
was
Hawk was good
trash.
too.
I said it.
Yes,
Venom was trash.
Venom,
If you
all
know,
of
you
them.
know. I have a friend out there who loves it. It was trash,
Ugh.
bro. Um, I mean, it wasn't trash. It was entertaining, but it wasn't good.
If they ever did the Sinister Six movies, you know, like what they were talking about with like Spider-Man villains, that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think Logan might
Because
be
they're
my
doing a Craven
favorite
movie. I'm not a
standalone.
big fan of making villains heroes, but whatever.
Same, same. I'm like, what is this obsession? I understand Sony, you don't want to use the heroes or whatever, but stop. Stop with this villain driven movies. Morbius, Venom, they're all
Make him
bad.
bad and don't make him good. I mean, that's a
And if you're
different
going to do a
story.
movie, and I'll say this so we can wrap up. The Craven trailer, I watched it, and I was like, I'm not a. I said in the group chat, I'm not a fan of this making these villains heroes. And
Good casting though.
my friend was like, how? Well, they have to do this so they can be the protagonist. I was like, you could still make a villain a protagonist. Just give this villain
He's
a code of honor that seems moral to us, but we still know that they're a killer, but they're not as bad as the other guy in the movie
yeah,
that they
not doing
claim
it
to
for
be.
just no reason. Like there's a
Yes.
justification for it. Yeah, like the
Yes.
Punisher. You know,
Exactly. And that's the example I use in the group chat. And that's why I'm like, just make Craven kind of like the Punisher. He has his own code. He still kills, but he's still not as bad as the people that he's killing. You know, you can see it from
yeah,
his point of view. You know what I'm saying? Like, come
absolutely.
on, man. I don't know, man. But hey, we're just guys who watch this stuff. They should hire us, but whatever.
We don't know anything.
But this was another good one, my nomads. What's your favorite superhero standalone film? Mine's might be Logan. His is the Batman. Let us know. Peace. Be creative.